Maybe you'd be more comfortable upstairs, my daughter-in-law said calmly. In the home I built with my own hands. The morning my daughter-in-law suggested I should stay upstairs in my own house, I was standing in the kitchen making breakfast. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Pancakes were sizzling on the stove, and sunlight streamed through the same kitchen window that had looked out over my garden for almost 30 years. I had cooked in that kitchen thousands of times. Birthday dinners, holiday feasts, late-night cups of tea when life felt too heavy. It was my kitchen, my home, my life. And yet that morning my daughter-in-law stood in the doorway with her arms folded and said in a calm, almost polite voice, "Margaret, maybe you'd be more comfortable upstairs." For a moment, I thought I had heard her wrong. "Excuse me?" I asked. She smiled gently, as if she was offering a helpful suggestion. "You've been working all morning. You should rest. We'll handle things down here." There was a pause. "Actually, I was hoping to ask you something." I sat up straighter. "Of course." "Well, Lily and I are going through a bit of a financial situation right now." That surprised me. Ethan had always been responsible, hardworking, the kind of boy who saved money instead of spending it. "What happened?" I asked gently. "My company downsized," he said, "and Lily left her job to start her own business. Which means," he continued carefully, "things are tight right now." I already knew what he was going to ask, and before he even finished the sentence I had made my decision. "You can stay here," I said. "Really?" he asked. "Of course," I said. "You're my son." He sounded relieved. "Just until we get back on our feet," he promised. "Maybe 3 months." 3 months. That's what he said. 3 months. 3 months. They moved in 2 weeks later. Ethan, his wife Lily, and their golden retriever Max. At first everything felt normal, even nice. The house felt alive again. After my husband Daniel passed away 5 years earlier, the silence had sometimes been overwhelming, so having people around again felt comforting. In the mornings Ethan would make coffee. We'd sit at the kitchen table talking like we used to when he was younger. Lily would come downstairs around 9, working on her laptop while drinking green smoothies. Felt like family. For a while. The first change was small. So small I almost ignored it. One morning I came downstairs and noticed the living room looked different. The pillows on the couch had been rearranged. The framed photos on the side table had been moved. And the small lamp Daniel bought me on our anniversary was gone. I found it later in the hallway closet, replaced by a tall modern lamp Lily had purchased. "Oh, I just thought it looked cleaner," she said when I asked. Cleaner. That word stuck with me. Cleaner than my memories. Cleaner than my life. But I didn't argue. I told myself it was a small thing. Not worth conflict. 2 weeks later something else changed. The kitchen cabinets. I opened the cupboard looking for my favorite mug. The blue ceramic one Ethan made for me when he was 12. It wasn't there. After searching for a few minutes, I finally found it on the top shelf in the back corner, hidden behind a row of matching white mugs. "Where did these come from?" I asked Lily. "Oh, I bought them," she said. "They match the kitchen better." She smiled sweetly. I reorganized everything. It's much more functional now. Functional. Another word that sounded harmless, but somehow made me feel like I didn't belong. Then came the sewing room. That room meant a lot to me. After Daniel died, sewing helped me cope with the grief. Quilts. Curtains. Small handmade gifts for neighbors. It was my quiet place. My healing space. So when Lily asked if she could use it as an office, I hesitated. "I'd rather keep that room the way it is," I said kindly. She nodded. "Of course." But 3 days later, I opened the door and found 2 computer monitors on my sewing table. Exactly what led to that morning. Standing in my kitchen, with pancakes on the stove, and Lily telling me politely that I might be more comfortable upstairs, in my own home. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I had already made a decision the night before. A decision that would change everything. And by the end of that week, my son and his wife would learn something very important, about whose house it really was. The words echoed in my mind long after Lily said them. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable upstairs." In my house, The house Daniel and I spent 28 years paying for. The house where Ethan learned to walk. The house where I held my husband's hand the night he passed away. And now somehow, I was being gently pushed out of my own kitchen. I turned off the stove slowly. The pancakes were already burning slightly at the edges. But nobody seemed to notice. Lily was greeting guests at the door like she owned the place. Ethan was helping people carry wine bottles and desserts into the dining room. The kitchen was suddenly crowded with strangers. People laughing, talking loudly, opening cabinets without asking. I stepped aside to give them space. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The kitchen cabinet doors had new labels on them. Small white stickers. Plates. Glasses. Serving bowls. Everything neatly categorized. Everything organized. Everything claimed. I hadn't put those labels there. And somehow the small detail felt like a flag planted in the middle of my life. "Mom!" Ethan called from the dining room. I walked in slowly. The table looked beautiful. Too beautiful. Lily had replaced my old tablecloth with a sleek gray one. The candles were tall and modern. Even the silverware had been switched out. For a moment I felt like I had walked into someone else's home. "Sit down," Lily said cheerfully. "You've been working all morning." Again. That sentence. That polite little dismissal. I sat down quietly and watched as Lily took the seat at the head of the table. The seat Daniel used to sit in. Dinner went smoothly. Too smoothly. Everyone complimented Lily's decorating. Her cooking. Her taste. "This house is gorgeous," one of her friends said. "You've done such an amazing job with it." Lily smiled. "Thank you." She didn't correct them. She didn't say Margaret owns the house. She simply accepted the compliment, like it was hers. After dinner I went upstairs earlier than usual. Not because I was tired, but because suddenly the downstairs no longer felt like my space. As I climbed the stairs I noticed something strange. The hallway walls looked different. I walked closer. My framed photos were gone. The ones showing Ethan growing up. His first bicycle. His graduation. Our family vacations. In their place were large abstract paintings. Cold. Modern. Impersonal. I stood there staring at them for a long time, trying to understand how my memories had been removed from my own walls without me noticing. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the bedroom Daniel and I once shared, looking at the old photo of us on the nightstand. "Can you believe this?" I whispered to the picture. Daniel had always been the calm one. The practical one. Whenever something bothered me, he would say, "Margaret, don't let people take advantage of your kindness." At the time I had laughed. But now his words echoed differently. The next morning I woke up early. Old habits never change. At 6:30 a.m. I walked downstairs to make coffee, but when I entered the kitchen I stopped. The coffee machine was gone. In its place sat a large stainless steel espresso machine I had never seen before. Next to it was a small note. "Please do not use. Still learning how to operate it, Lily." I stared at the note for a long moment. Then I opened a cabinet looking for my old coffee maker. It wasn't there. Neither were my favorite mugs. Instead the shelves were filled with identical white cups. Matching. Perfect. Impersonal. A few minutes later Lily walked into the kitchen wearing workout clothes. "Oh, you're up early," she said. "I always wake up early," I replied. She nodded and walked toward the espresso machine. "I ordered this last week," she said proudly. "It's professional grade." "That's nice," I said. "But where's the old coffee maker?" She shrugged. "I donated it." My stomach tightened. "You donated it?" "Yes. It was old anyway." I looked at her carefully. "You didn't ask me." She blinked surprised. "Oh, I thought you wouldn't mind." I said nothing, because suddenly something inside me was beginning to shift. Quiet realization. A slow awareness. That this wasn't about decorations. Or coffee machines. Or reorganizing cabinets. This was something else. Something bigger. Over the next few weeks the changes continued. Small. Subtle. But constant. Lily began hosting weekly dinners. Then weekend brunches. Then business meetings. Soon strangers were coming and going from the house almost every day. People I had never met. People who treated the house like it was Lily's. And Ethan? He kept avoiding the conversation. Mom, she's building her business, he said once. She needs space. But the strange part was, Lily's business never seemed to actually go anywhere. She spent hours on video calls, but there were no products, no shipments, no employees, just endless meetings and expensive deliveries. New furniture, new decorations, new technology, all arriving at my house. Then one afternoon something happened that made everything suddenly clearer. I came home from grocery shopping and noticed a large truck parked in the driveway. 2 men were carrying boxes inside. What's going on? I asked. Oh, one of them said. We're delivering office equipment. Office equipment. I walked inside and froze. The living room had been completely transformed. Desks, computers, office chairs, large monitors mounted on the walls. My living room had become a workspace. Lily, I called. She appeared from the hallway looking excited. Surprise, she said. What is this? I asked quietly. My new office setup. In my living room? Well, technically our living room now. That sentence hit me harder than anything she had said before. Our living room. I took a slow breath. Lily, this is my house. She tilted her head slightly. Yes, but we all live here. That doesn't make it yours. Her smile faded slightly. Well, Ethan and I contribute too. My heart sank, because suddenly I understood. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was strategy. Slow, patient, careful, step by step. Lily had been claiming space, room by room, wall by wall, until one day, she could say the house belonged to all of us. That evening I waited for Ethan to come home. We sat in the kitchen, just the 2 of us. Ethan, I said gently, we need to talk. He sighed. About the office? Yes. It's temporary, Mom. That's what you said about living here. He looked uncomfortable. We're still figuring things out. How long, Ethan? What do you mean? You said 3 months. He looked away. It's been almost a year. The silence between us felt heavy. Finally he said something that broke my heart. Mom, you have so much space here. I stared at him. So we should just take it? That's not what I meant. But that's what's happening. That night I sat at the kitchen table alone, thinking, remembering, observing, and finally I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened the old wooden drawer Daniel used to keep important documents in. Inside were house papers, insurance forms, mortgage records, and one document that made me sit up straighter. A document Lily clearly didn't know existed, as if she had, she would never have started treating my home like it belonged to her. I closed the drawer slowly. For the first time in months, I felt calm, because suddenly I knew something Lily didn't. And very soon, she was going to learn it too. That night, after Ethan went to bed and Lily finished her last video call in the living room, the house finally grew quiet again. For the first time all day I had space to think. I sat at the kitchen table with the old wooden drawer open in front of me. Inside were the documents Daniel and I had carefully saved over the years. Insurance papers, mortgage receipts, property tax records, the history of our lives inside this house. But the document that caught my attention wasn't one I had looked at in a long time. It was a thick envelope labeled, Property Transfer Agreement. Picked it up slowly. Daniel and I had signed those papers 2 years before he died. At the time we had simply wanted to make sure everything was organized, safe, protected. He had insisted on it. Margaret, he said back then, sitting beside me at the same kitchen table, people change when money and property are involved. I had laughed at him. Not Ethan, I said. Not our son. Daniel had smiled gently. I hope you're right. Then he added something I never forgot. But hope isn't a legal strategy. Now, years later, his words echoed differently. I opened the envelope carefully and reread the document. The house was fully in my name. Not shared. Not co-owned. Not transferable without my written approval. And there was something else. A clause Daniel's lawyer had insisted on adding. A residency condition. Anyone living in the house who was not the legal owner could be asked to leave at any time. Immediately. Legally. No notice required. At the time it had felt unnecessary, but now, it felt very important. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual. At 6 a.m. the house was still quiet. I walked downstairs slowly and looked around. The living room desks, the office chairs, the monitors glowing softly in sleep mode. My home looked like a startup company, not a home. I made tea and sat by the window watching the garden. Daniel loved that garden. He planted every rose bush himself, and Lily had already removed 2 of them because they were outdated. I sighed quietly, because the truth was becoming clearer. This wasn't just about space. It was about control. Around 9 a.m. Lily came downstairs. She was already dressed for work. Blazer, laptop bag, phone in her hand. "Morning," she said quickly. "Morning," I replied. She walked straight into the living room and started checking the computers. 3 people arrived soon after. Young men carrying laptops. "Team meeting at 10, Lily told them. They nodded and started setting up. I watched silently from the kitchen. Soon the house was full of voices again. Keyboard clicks, phone calls, laughter. It felt less like a home with each passing day. Around noon I stepped into the living room. "Lily," I said calmly. "Yes," she replied without looking up from her laptop. "We should talk." She glanced at the others. "Give us a minute," she told them. They stepped outside onto the porch. Lily crossed her arms. "What's wrong?" I took a breath. "I don't want the living room used as an office anymore." She blinked. "What?" "This house wasn't built for a company. It's temporary," she said quickly. "That's what you said 6 months ago." Her expression hardened slightly. "Margaret, my business is growing. I understand. But this isn't an office building." For a moment she said nothing. Then she smiled politely. "You're overreacting." That sentence irritated me more than anything else she had ever said. "Am I?" "Yes. People work from home all the time. This isn't your home." The moment the words left my mouth, the room went completely silent. Lily's smile disappeared. "Excuse me," I said. I repeated calmly. "This is not your home." Her eyes narrowed. "Ethan and I live here." "Yes. But ownership matters." She stared at me for a few seconds. Then she laughed lightly. "Margaret, we're family. That doesn't change property laws." Now she looked annoyed. "Why are you suddenly acting like this?" "Because I should have acted sooner." Just then Ethan walked in from the backyard. "What's going on?" he asked. "Your mother is trying to shut down my office," Lily said immediately. Ethan looked confused. "Mom." I turned to him calmly. "Ethan, this house was meant to be a home." "It still is," he replied. "Look around." He looked at the desks and monitors, then at me. "It's temporary." "Again," I said quietly. "That word." Lily grabbed her laptop. "You know what?" she said. "This conversation is ridiculous." She turned toward the door. "We have real work to do." But before she could leave, I said something that stopped her. "Lily, do you actually have clients?" She turned slowly. "What?" "Your business," I continued. "What exactly does it do?" Her expression became defensive. "Consulting." "For who?" "That's confidential." Ethan looked uncomfortable. "Mom." But I continued. "Because I've been watching for months. And I've never seen a single product. A single contract. A single invoice." Lily's eyes flashed with anger. "You think I'm lying?" "I think something doesn't add up." For a moment no one spoke. Then Lily grabbed her bag and stormed out. The young employees quickly followed her. The front door slammed behind them. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, why would you say that?" "Because it's true." "You don't know that." "I know what I see." He sighed heavily. "You're making things harder than they need to be." "Harder for who?" I asked. "For everyone." That afternoon the house felt strangely quiet. Lily didn't come back. Neither did the team. For the first time in months the living room sat empty again. I walked through it slowly, touching the furniture, looking at the monitors. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. And the more I thought about it, the more questions appeared. That evening something unexpected happened. A car pulled into the driveway. But it wasn't Lily. It was a dark sedan I didn't recognize. A man stepped out, wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase. He walked up to the door and knocked. I opened it cautiously. "Yes. Good evening," he said politely. "My name is Mr. Grant. Can I help you?" He looked at the house behind me. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with Lily Carter." My stomach tightened. "Why?" He hesitated, then said something that made my heart skip. "I'm here regarding several unpaid invoices connected to her company." Unpaid invoices? I stared at him. Her company? Yes. According to our records, this address is registered as the main office. My heart sank, because suddenly everything started making sense. The office setup, the deliveries, the constant meetings, and the fact that Lily had never asked permission to use my address. I looked back at the living room, then at the man standing at my door. "I think," I said slowly, "you and I need to have a very serious conversation." Because if what he was saying was true, Lily hadn't just taken over my house. She had used it. Legally, financially, and very soon, that decision was going to come back to haunt her. The man standing at my door looked professional. Too professional to be mistaken. Dark suit, leather briefcase, calm expression. "My name is Thomas Grant," he repeated politely. "I represent a supplier that has been trying to contact Lily Carter for several weeks." My stomach tightened. "Several weeks?" "Yes." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "According to our records, her company placed equipment orders totaling nearly $48,000. 48,000. The number felt unreal. "And the registered office address," he continued, glancing at the paper, "is this property." I felt a cold wave move through my chest. "My house?" "Yes." I stepped aside slowly. "Please come in." He entered the living room and looked around. His eyes paused on the desks and monitors Lily had installed. "I see," he said quietly. "You weren't aware of this arrangement." "No," I replied honestly. "Not at all." He nodded slowly. "That explains a lot." We sat at the dining table. He opened the folder and placed several documents in front of me. Invoices, contracts, shipping confirmations, all addressed to a company called Lily Carter Consulting Group. The address printed beneath it was unmistakable. My home. I stared at the paper in disbelief. "She never asked permission to register a business here," I said. Mr. Grant nodded. "That happens more often than you'd think. But the problem is," he continued carefully, "our company delivered thousands of dollars worth of equipment here." I looked around the living room again. The monitors, the computers, the office chairs. Suddenly they didn't just look like furniture. They looked like evidence. "When were these delivered?" I asked. He checked his documents. "Over the last 4 months." That made my heart sink even further. Because over the last 4 months, Lily had told Ethan and me the business was still getting started. But according to these documents, it was already spending tens of thousands of dollars. Money she at her. "No. You made things awkward the moment you turned my living room into a company office." Ethan looked between us. "Mom." But I continued calmly. "You registered a business using my home address. You filled my house with equipment you haven't paid for. And you did it without even asking permission." The room felt completely still. Lily's voice dropped. "You're overreacting." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally reacting." Then I folded the documents and placed them back in the envelope, and said the one sentence that changed everything. "Lily, you have 1 week to move your office out of my house." Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Yes. And if the equipment isn't gone by then." I paused. "I'll start removing it myself." For several seconds Lily just stared at me, like she was seeing me for the first time. Not the quiet woman she had slowly pushed aside for months, but someone very different. Someone who had finally decided enough was enough. And deep down, I knew something Lily didn't realize yet. Because that unpaid equipment, that registered business address, that legal clause in my house agreement, those were just the beginning. Because the next thing I planned to do was going to make her situation much worse. The room stayed silent after my words. 1 week, I had said. Lily looked at Ethan as if waiting for him to defend her. But Ethan didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at the documents on the table. Finally he spoke quietly. Lily, is this true? She scoffed. Of course it's true. Businesses have invoices. That's not what I asked. His voice had changed. For the first time that evening, it carried a firmness I hadn't heard in months. Did you really register your company using my mother's house without telling her? Lily's jaw tightened. I didn't think it was a big deal. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. $48,000 isn't a small deal. She grabbed her laptop from the table. Everyone is acting like I committed a crime. No one said that, Ethan replied. But it's starting to look like one. That sentence landed heavily in the room. For a moment Lily didn't speak. Then she said something that surprised both of us. Fine. I'll move the equipment. Ethan looked relieved. But I didn't. Because something about her tone didn't sound like surrender. It sounded like calculation. Later that night I sat in the living room alone. The monitors were still glowing. The desks were still there. But now I was seeing them differently. Daniel used to say something interesting about people. If someone pushes a boundary once and gets away with it, he told me years ago, they'll push it again. And Lily had been pushing boundaries since the day she moved in. The upstairs room, the garden, the living room office, the business registration. Each step had been slightly bigger than the last, which meant something else was probably coming. The next morning proved that theory right. At 7:30 a.m., there was a loud knock on the door. I opened it to find 2 delivery men standing outside. Behind them was a large truck. Delivery for Lily Carter Consulting, one of them said. I felt my stomach drop. Another delivery? Yes, ma'am. They showed me the order sheet. More equipment. More computers. More office furniture. All addressed to my home. I took a deep breath. Please wait here. I walked upstairs and knocked on Ethan and Lily's bedroom door. Ethan opened it. He looked exhausted. Mom, there's another delivery truck outside. His face fell. He turned toward Lily. Please tell me that isn't more equipment. She avoided his eyes. It's just a few extra workstations. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. You ordered more equipment? You said you'd move the office. I will, she replied quickly. But we still need to operate in the meantime. I stepped forward calmly. The equipment isn't coming inside. Both of them looked at me. Margaret, Lily started. No. My voice stayed firm. You were given 1 week to remove equipment. Not add more. She sighed dramatically. You're being unreasonable. Am I? Yes. This is my business. And this is my house. For a few seconds no one spoke. Then Ethan said quietly, cancel the delivery. Lily turned toward him sharply. What? You heard me. But the team needs those computers. Cancel the delivery. It was the strongest I had ever seen him stand up to her. And Lily clearly didn't like it. But after a moment, she grabbed her phone and made the call. The delivery truck drove away 10 minutes later. For the rest of the morning the house stayed tense. No one spoke much. Ethan went to work. Lily stayed upstairs. And I sat in the kitchen thinking about something Mr. Grant had said the night before. You should confirm whether your property is legally registered as a business location. The more I thought about it, the more concerned I became. Because if Lily had used my address for business registration, there could be other legal problems connected to that. Taxes, licenses, liability. And I had never approved any of it. So I decided to make a phone call. I contacted Daniel's old lawyer, Mr. Harrison. He had helped us prepare the house documents years ago. Margaret, he said warmly when he answered. It's been a while. Yes, I said. And unfortunately, I need legal advice. After I explained everything, there was a long pause on the phone. Then he said something that made my heart sink. That situation is more serious than you realize. How serious? I asked. If her company has debts or legal claims, creditors could attempt to pursue assets connected to the registered address. My house? I asked quietly. Possibly. A cold chill ran through me. But don't panic, he added. There are ways to protect yourself. What should I do? I asked. First, he said firmly, remove your address from that business registration immediately. And second, he paused. You should strongly consider ending their residency in the house. That sentence sat heavily in my chest. Ending their residency, asking my own son to move out. It wasn't something I ever wanted to do, but things were already going too far. That afternoon Ethan came home early. He looked tired. Mom, he said quietly, sitting at the kitchen table. We need to talk. I nodded. I agree. He took a deep breath. I didn't know about the debts. I believe you. I thought Lily's company was doing well. Sometimes people hide things, I said gently. He nodded slowly. Then he asked the question I had been expecting. Are you really going to make us move out? I looked at him carefully. My son, the little boy I had raised. The man standing in front of me now looked lost. I don't want to, I said honestly. But this house can't become part of someone else's business problems. He nodded quietly. I understand. At that moment Lily walked into the kitchen. She looked irritated. What are you two whispering about? Ethan stood up. My mom talked to a lawyer today. Lily froze slightly. A lawyer? Yes. And apparently registering your business here could put the house at risk. Her expression hardened. That's ridiculous. It's not. Then Ethan said something. That shocked her. You should start looking for another place. The room went completely silent. You're serious, she said. Yes. You're taking her side? I'm taking reality's side. For a moment Lily just stared at him. Then she laughed bitterly. You'll regret this. No, Ethan replied calmly. I'll regret not dealing with it sooner. She grabbed her phone and stormed out of the room. A few seconds later the front door slammed. Ethan sat down slowly again. I didn't think things would get this bad, he said. Neither did I. But deep down, I had a feeling things were about to get even worse. Because Lily wasn't the type of person who accepted defeat quietly. And sure enough, later that night, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. When I answered, a cold voice said something that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Carter? Yes. This is the City Business Compliance Office. We're calling regarding a registered commercial property inspection scheduled for tomorrow morning. My heart stopped. Commercial property inspection? At my house? That meant one thing. Lily's business registration had already triggered a legal review. And tomorrow, the government was coming to inspect my home. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Sleep had barely visited me during the night. My mind kept replaying the words from the phone call. Commercial property inspection scheduled for tomorrow morning. My home. The house Daniel and I built together. The house where Ethan grew up. Now somehow registered as a business property without my permission. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee slowly dripping into the pot. Outside the sky was pale gray, and the neighborhood was still quiet. But inside my chest there was a storm. At exactly 9:02 a.m. the doorbell rang. Right on time. I opened the door to find two people standing there. A man in a navy blazer holding a tablet. And a woman with a clipboard and a small badge clipped to her jacket. Good morning, the man said politely. Mrs. Margaret Carter? Yes. I'm Daniel Brooks from the City Business Compliance Department. This is my colleague, Ms. Alvarez. He held up his badge. We're here for a scheduled commercial property inspection. The words sounded strange in my own house. Please come in, I said quietly. They stepped inside and immediately looked around the living room. Their eyes moved slowly over the desks, the monitors, the computers, the printers. Ms. Alvarez wrote something on her clipboard. Mr. Brooks tapped a few notes into his tablet. How long has the business been operating here? He asked. I'm not sure, I answered honestly. This is my daughter-in-law's company. And the business owner is? Lily Carter. He nodded. And is she present? Upstairs, I said. I walked to the bottom of the staircase. Lily, I called. A moment later she appeared at the top of the stairs, clearly irritated. What? There are inspectors here from the city. Her face froze. For just a moment, Then she quickly smoothed her expression and walked downstairs. "Good morning," she said with a forced smile. "I'm Lily Carter." Mr. Brooks nodded politely. "Thank you for coming down. We just need to confirm some details regarding your registered business location." "Of course," she said quickly. "But I noticed something." Her hands were shaking slightly. Mr. Brooks pointed toward the office setup in the living room. "This appears to be the primary work area?" "Yes," Lily replied. "Temporary workspace while the company expands." Ms. Alvarez asked the next question. "Do you have a commercial occupancy permit for this address?" The silence that followed lasted only 2 seconds, but it felt much longer. We're still processing some paperwork," Lily said. Ms. Alvarez wrote another note. "Operating a business with employees requires a permit." "Oh, there are no employees here," Lily said quickly. But Ethan's voice suddenly came from the hallway. "That's not true." We all turned. He had just walked in from outside. He must have come home from work early. "What do you mean?" Lily asked sharply. "You told me you hired 3 remote staff members," he said. Mr. Brooks looked up from his tablet. 3 employees? Lily hesitated. "Well, technically freelancers." "Freelancers still count as business staff," Ms. Alvarez replied calmly. The tension in the room grew thicker. Mr. Brooks walked closer to the desk and looked at the equipment. "How many computers were purchased for this business?" 5, Lily answered. He checked the tablet again. "According to our record, the equipment order includes 8 systems." 8. Even Ethan looked surprised. "You told me 5, he said quietly. Lily's patience snapped. "Why is everyone interrogating me like I'm on trial?" Mr. Brooks remained calm. "Ma'am, we're simply verifying compliance." Then he asked the question that changed everything. "Is the property owner present?" I raised my hand slightly. "That would be me." He looked at me with a serious expression. "Mrs. Carter, did you authorize this address to be registered as a commercial business location?" "No," I said clearly. "I did not." The room went silent. Even Lily stopped moving. Ms. Alvarez looked at her clipboard again. "Without property owner authorization, the registration may be considered invalid." Lily's voice sharpened. "That's ridiculous. I live here." Mr. Brooks shook his head slightly. "Residency and ownership are legally different." Ethan looked stunned. "You never told my mom you registered the business here?" Lily crossed her arms defensively. "It didn't seem important." "Not important," he said. "You turned my mother's house into a business headquarters without permission." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. You're exaggerating." But the inspectors were not amused. Mr. Brooks closed his tablet. "Based on what we've observed, this property is currently operating as an unlicensed commercial office." Ms. Alvarez added, "which means the business owner may face penalties." Lily's face turned pale. "What kind of penalties?" Mr. Brooks answered calmly. "Fines, compliance orders, and potential suspension of the business license." Ethan looked at her in disbelief. "You never told me about any of this." "I didn't think it would matter," she snapped. Then Mr. Brooks said something even worse. "Additionally, since equipment suppliers have filed payment concerns connected to this address." My heart skipped a beat. "There may also be financial liability investigations." Lily's confidence completely disappeared. "What?" "Yes," he said. "We received notice from a creditor yesterday. Mr. Grant. He must have reported it." Ethan slowly sat down at the kitchen table. "You're in debt." "It's temporary," Lily said quickly. "How much?" he asked. She didn't answer. "How much, Lily?" "Around 60,000. The number echoed in the room. Even the inspectors looked surprised. 60. Ethan whispered. But that wasn't the worst part. Because Mr. Brooks said something that made my heart sink. If the debt collection process escalates, creditors may pursue assets connected to the business address. My house. Again. My home was being dragged deeper into her mess. Ethan stood up slowly. "Mom had nothing to do with this." Mr. Brooks nodded. "That's why we're documenting ownership clarification." Ms. Alvarez handed me a form. "If you sign here confirming you did not authorize the business registration, we can remove the property from the commercial record." I took the pen. My hand trembled slightly, but I signed. Lily looked furious. "You're sabotaging my company." "No," I said quietly. "I'm protecting my home." The inspectors finished their notes and prepared to leave. But before walking out, Mr. Brooks looked at Lily. "You have 5 business days to relocate your operations." Then he added, "Otherwise the city will issue formal penalties." The door closed behind them, and the house fell silent again. For several seconds no one moved. Then Ethan slowly turned toward Lily. "You lied to me." "It wasn't a lie. You had $60,000 of debt." She looked desperate now. "I was going to fix it." "How?" he asked. "With money we don't have?" Then he said something that shocked her. "Mom was right. You need to move your business out. And maybe move out yourself." Lily stared at him like she couldn't believe what she heard. "You're choosing her over your wife?" "I'm choosing honesty." She grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door again. "You'll regret this." But this time Ethan didn't stop her. He just stood there quietly. After she left, he sat down slowly. "I'm sorry, Mom." "You didn't know," I said gently. He nodded. But deep down, I knew something else was coming, because people like Lily didn't walk away easily. And 2 hours later, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't the city. It was Mr. Grant. And what he said next made everything even more serious. "Mrs. Carter, we've just discovered something about Lily's business that you need to hear immediately." The phone call from Mr. Grant echoed in my mind long after I hung up. "Mrs. Carter, we've discovered something about Lily's business that you need to hear immediately." At the time, Ethan was still sitting quietly at the kitchen table. He looked drained, like the weight of the last few hours had completely crushed him. I took a deep breath and sat down across from him. "Ethan," I said gently, "there's something else you need to know." He rubbed his eyes. "More bad news." "I'm afraid so." I told him about the call, about what Mr. Grant had discovered. And the moment I finished speaking, Ethan's face went completely pale. "You're saying?" He struggled to finish the sentence. "The equipment she ordered wasn't just for her business?" "No." According to Mr. Grant, the company had traced the orders and shipping records. Some of the equipment had already been resold online, at lower prices, which meant Lily wasn't just running a struggling company. She had been buying equipment on credit and flipping it for fast cash. Essentially, running a small financial scam. Ethan leaned back in his chair slowly. "Oh my God. It gets worse," I said quietly. Mr. Grant had also explained something else. The reason Lily registered the business under my home address wasn't random. It made her look more stable to suppliers. A permanent residential address. A long property ownership record. All of that made creditors more willing to approve expensive orders. She had used my house's credibility to secure the equipment. Without telling me. Without telling Ethan. Without telling anyone. Ethan buried his face in his hands. "I married her," he whispered. "I should have known." "You couldn't have known," I said gently. "She's been lying to everyone." But Ethan shook his head. "No, there were signs." He looked up slowly. "The spending. The secret phone calls. The way she kept talking about investors." He laughed bitterly. "There were no investors." Just then the front door opened. Lily walked back into the house. She looked furious. "I hope you're both happy," she snapped. "The city inspectors practically shut my business down." Ethan stood up slowly. "Your business was already collapsing." "That's not true." "Yes, it is." He walked closer to her. "Mom spoke with the supplier." For the first time that day, Lily looked nervous again. "What supplier?" "The equipment company." Her silence said everything. "They told us about the reselling," Ethan continued. "You bought equipment on credit, then sold it online for quick cash." "That's not illegal," she said quickly. "Not if you don't pay the supplier," Ethan replied. The tension in the room felt electric. "Why would you do that?" he asked. She crossed her arms. "Because businesses need capital." "So you committed fraud?" "It's not fraud." "Then why are suppliers calling the house?" She didn't answer. Finally Lily snapped. "Because nothing ever worked." She threw her bag onto the couch. You think starting a company is easy? I was drowning in bills. Ethan stared at her. So your solution was to drag my mother into it? I needed an address. You used her house. Her voice turned bitter. Oh please. She barely uses half this place anyway. That sentence changed the atmosphere instantly, because Ethan's expression hardened. I had never seen that look on my son's face before. Enough, he said quietly. What? I said enough. You're overreacting. No, he replied calmly. I'm finally reacting. The same words I had said the night before. Then he pointed toward the stairs. You need to pack. Her eyes widened. You're kicking me out? Yes. You can't be serious. I am. This is my house too. No, he said firmly. It isn't. For a moment Lily looked like she might explode. You're choosing her over your wife? Ethan shook his head slowly. I'm choosing truth over lies. And I'm choosing my mother over someone who tried to destroy her home. The room fell completely silent. Lily stared. At him. Then at me. Then she laughed bitterly. Fine. If that's how you want it. She grabbed her bag again. I'll leave. But before walking upstairs she said something else. You'll regret this. 30 minutes later, she came downstairs with 2 suitcases. She didn't look at either of us. She walked straight to the door. Then she stopped and turned back toward Ethan. You'll realize someday you made a mistake. But Ethan didn't respond. He just stood there quietly. The door closed behind her. And for the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. No tension. No arguments. No constant feeling that something wasn't right. Just silence. Ethan sat down again slowly. I'm sorry, Mom. You don't need to apologize. Yes, I do. He looked around the living room. At everything she did here. I placed my hand on his shoulder. We'll fix it. Over the next few weeks, the equipment was returned to the supplier. Most of it anyway. Mr. Grant's company managed to recover the remaining items through legal action. Lily's business was shut down, and the debt collectors stopped calling the house. Because my address had officially been removed from the registration. The living room slowly returned to normal. The desks disappeared. The monitors were gone. The space felt like a home again. Not an office. Not a business. Just a home. One evening, Ethan and I sat in the garden watching the sunset. The same garden Lily once said she needed to reorganize. Now the flowers were blooming again. And the air felt lighter. I should have protected you sooner, Ethan said quietly. You did protect me, I replied. You just needed time to see the truth. He nodded slowly. Then he smiled slightly. You know something? What? This house is stronger than I thought. I laughed softly. No. It's the people inside it that are strong. 'Cause sometimes, the hardest thing in life isn't facing strangers. It's facing the truth about someone you trusted. But once that truth comes out, everything changes. And sometimes, sets you free. For more inspiring and heart-touching stories like this, please subscribe to our channel.